A top-level meeting between Israeli and U.S. officials is back on. Prime Minister Netanyahu had previously called off the meeting after the U.S. failed to veto a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire.
Netanyahu says he canceled it as a warning to Hamas. Israel will not be pressured into ending the war. Chris Mitchell reports.
Announcing that the Israeli delegation to Washington is back on, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he canceled it to warn Hamas that Israel will not be pressured into ending the war or giving up on its hostages.
It was a message first and foremost to Hamas: don't bet on this pressure, it's not going to work.
All this triggered by a U.S. refusal to veto a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire without linking it to the release of the hostages. Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman told CBN News the U.S. action aided Israel's enemies.
Hamas was celebrating this. Ismail Haniyeh from Hamas traveled to Tehran to do a victory lap, with the mullahs about this. I mean, this was considered a victory for Hamas. Now, any UN resolution that's a victory for Hamas is obviously a move in the absolute wrong direction. The idea that you could pass a resolution and not condemn Hamas as part of it is just unthinkable.
Meeting with U.S. lawmakers in Israel, Netanyahu said they're just a few weeks away from finishing off Hamas as a fighting force. However, much of the world opposes an Israeli invasion of Rafah, the terror group's last stronghold.
And we think there's a better way, and we want to have the opportunity to present that better alternative to Israel. So we do think it's important that that meeting take place.
Netanyahu insists that the 2 million Gazans in Rafah can avoid the battle by simply moving back north.
Yes, they have a place to go. Second, we provide them food. The problem was not the entry of trucks. The problem was the stealing of trucks, both by looting by Hamas and looting by others and so on.
In Jerusalem, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says the U.S. should support Israeli forces going into Rafah to destroy Hamas's last 4 battalions.
October the 7th was like Pearl Harbor and 9/11 on steroids for the Israeli people. And the response to October the 7th is total victory. The destruction of all military capability, battalion-wise, of Hamas.
Graham also explained why Israelis are so troubled at the UN resolution demanding a ceasefire without demanding Hamas free the hostages.
I understand the Israeli position. You have to be clear there will never be a ceasefire unless the hostages are released.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's a sad day for Israel when it can't depend on its allies, and it seems like the world is turning against her. We reported about a week ago that Canada was resuming payments to UNRWA, the UN Relief Works Agency that is quite clearly implicated in the attacks. Employees that were paid with UNRWA money were part of the attack group on October 7th. It just boggles your mind that they would resume payments without first making sure that it wasn't being diverted into further terrorist activity. And then to hear that Ireland has joined in this international court to claim that Israel is committing war crimes, it just boggles your mind that people aren't holding Hamas accountable for the war crimes that they committed. They attacked innocent civilians. They used rape as a method of war and terror. They took hostages. They took young children hostages and have been holding them in dark tunnels for forever. And in all of that, Israel is being blamed, not Hamas. Hamas is the reason the people of Gaza are suffering. Hamas is the reason for this horrible war. Hamas is the reason that Israel had to attack, because they vowed to repeat October 7th again and again and again. Where's our moral standard here? Where's our fiber? Where's our backbone to say, no, you can't do this. This has taken you well beyond the civilized world, and we can't allow this ideology to stand anymore. Let me underline something else, because we showed a picture in that piece of the hostages. In all of this, we're forgetting that they're American hostages. Let me show you their picture where you can see for yourself. There were 8 that were taken. We don't know how many of them are still alive. And their bodies, if they have perished, their bodies are being held. We think 4 are still alive, but you don't hear any of that in our news today. If this were any other situation, people would be pounding the table for our citizens to be released. The government would be talking about using our military to get them back. None of that is happening here, and I just don't understand why. So, could you please call your congressman? Could you please call your senator? Let them know how you feel, that you want us to stand with Israel, that our hostages need to come home before there's any kind of peace agreement in Gaza.